If you like what you see here, go visit our website at carolinaballisticsta.net. Sign up for gun classes, check out our merchandise, and once you're done there, go ahead and share, like, and subscribe to all the social medias, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Enjoy the podcast.
Hey guys, what's up? What's up? Welcome to Carolina Ballistics and Training Academy's podcast. We are your host, myself, Daniel, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. David Harris.
What's up, what's up, what's up?
And we are your team here, guys. We have a hell of a show for you guys. Today, we're going to talk to Mr. Anthony Brooks. He's a very influential guy out there in the Burlington area. Anthony, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, everybody, what's going on? Anthony Brooks. I live in Alamance County. I've been doing several different things in the political world. I'm from Los Angeles, California. I've been there. I grew up there up until 1996. Then I went to a military academy in Fort Union, then off to college. University of Virginia, majored in political science, and then took off from there to the United States military.
Oh, wow. Incredible. How long were you in the military?
14 long years.
Oh, good grief. You over there battling David Harris over here. How long were you in, David?
I've been in going on 20 years in February. Well, I know. I get out February 3rd, so yeah, 20 years.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, so you're an interesting guy, Mr. Brooks. You deal with local municipal politics within the Alamance area.
Yes, sir.
And you're also a Republican. And if you can't see the guy because you're listening to the podcast on Spotify, you are a African-American Republican.
Sir.
Yeah, so talk to us. What's that like?
It's interesting.
Yeah.
It all depends on what exactly you mean what I'm talking about. If you, the municipal level, about being a black conservative, up-and-coming black conservative, where I came from, or...
So let's start off with operating on the municipal level.
Okay.
What is why is that important, and what kind of things do you have to personally deal with dealing with politics at that level?
First of all, I want to distinguish the two when it comes to the municipal level, because it works two different ways. The size of the city matters. Like, let's take Alamance County, for instance. You're dealing with local politicians who've been there 30 and 40 years, born and raised there, versus if you go to a county like, say, Mecklenburg. Mm-hmm. I don't know the population, probably close to 1 million. I don't know. But either way, it brings in major cities bring in a lot of different people from all over. You don't have people that's been sitting around for 20, 30 years and local homegrowns. So it's a little bit different when, like, Alamance County. It's been interesting because, like I said, I'm dealing with some guys that are slow to adapt to change. Mm-hmm. You know, you've been this certain way for so many years, and all of a sudden they see a different face. They didn't adapt very well. It's been a struggle. Wow. But I think a lot of bright sides too. Luckily, I had a great chairman at the GOP, because leadership there really matters. Wow. And we had great leadership at one time there. Not so much now, but at one time there we had outstanding leadership.
Wow. Very cool. So, back to the question in connection with being a black Republican in Alamance. How has that been for you, that experience?
Unfortunately, the biggest challenge has been engaging other black voters.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, and then again, it goes to there's no counter strategy when it comes to black voters. You know, we hear the same message for 40 years. The same thing over and over, then it becomes embedded in our culture. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to break through that with a lot of black voters, because the only thing they know is Republicans are racist, Republicans are this. Mm-hmm. So that's the biggest challenge, getting them to understand that as black individuals, you guys are really conservative, don't realize it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I read somewhere it was something like 77% of like black voters are actually very conservative, and
right.
like I want to say it was like 13% that was actually considered like liberal or something like that.
Well, if you look at one of the conservative messages, is freedom, justice, liberty, freedom, liberty, justice for all. Yeah, people are going to screw that. Well, we don't have any freedom. We're black, blah, 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 blah. Fine. But we do love freedom, because as black Americans, we've been fighting our whole lives for 400 years for freedom.
Yeah.
So that part right there aligns with your
thought
conservatism.
process.
Right.
Absolutely. Were you about to say something?
No.
So interesting. In connection with that, I did want to tap on a foundation that you're currently a member of, and that was the Frederick Douglass Foundation.
Yes, sir.
And I always thought that was really an interesting connection, and I'm happy you talked about the freedom aspect, because especially when you know the history of Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass was, first off, he was the product of a slave having relations with the slave master.
Right.
So he was a mixed person who later on became a runaway slave and ran to the North. And the big thing that he talked about a lot was freedom, the importance of freedom in the life of being a slave. How does that connect, and how does that align with your Republican, your conservative values? The history of Frederick Douglass.
Well, it aligns perfect because the history of Frederick Douglass actually aligns with my thought process, and actually 90% of Black American thought process.
Yeah.
The Frederick Douglass Foundation in itself is a great bridge for Black Americans when it comes to connecting with the GOP. And that's the main goal for the Frederick Douglass Foundation is, unfortunately, a lot of Black Americans, they hear the word GOP, the Republican, shy away.
Yeah.
So Frederick Douglass acts as a bridge, get more Black Americans understanding our history, understanding conservatism, understanding what these, what his message really meant, you know what I mean? And then use that to understand that your connection is actually to the GOP and kind of go from there.
Interesting. Very cool. Very cool. Very cool. Let's talk a little bit about the history of gun control and how they have developed your politics. Being on the show, I assume that you're a two-way guy.
Absolutely.
How has the current approach to gun control developed your politics?
I don't know if it developed. The current, what are you talking about? The fight against gun control?
So, as we know, over time, gun laws have become more and more restrictive.
Gotcha.
Right? From the SBR tax stamps to the pistol braces that are required. When you think about 2A, why is it important for Americans to consider it a priority right? Why is it important?
Well, for two reasons. My main reason is it's a right. It's Second Amendment, it's a right, it's a Bill of Rights. So to me, in my opinion, there's no discussion. It's in written, it's a right, there's nothing you can do about it, there's nothing to discuss. Now, if you look on the flip side of what they're doing to the Second Amendment, I'm gonna be honest with you, this is about control. With all the Marxist ideology coming in and all the socialists overtaking our government, it's just part of the plan. And you can't implicate your agenda with armed citizens.
Yeah.
Now, some might say, oh, he's being a conspiracy theorist, but no, because this playbook's already been written.
Yeah.
We actually are rerunning somebody else's playbook here.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you say that. So a lot of people struggle with why communism is bad and why Marxism is bad. The whole concept is ultimately to ensure that the people are reliant on the government.
Right.
And it's for everything.
Right.
Food, water, resources, even protection. You're completely reliant on the government for all that.
Right.
In fact, one of the identifiers for like communist Russia was to, of course, strip the firearms from the citizens, which is done in Russia. Like no citizen of Russia owns firearms. In fact, you can be placed in jail if you own a firearm in Russia. And it's really about control, as you mentioned.
Absolutely.
And that is important to understand for a free nation, is that control, when you release your control to the government, by releasing all your firearms, you're no able longer to protect yourself from potential threats to your home and your family. That's a very, very important thing to keep in mind So whether a person is pro 2A or against 2A, what you choose to do for your household is, your business. But if another person chooses to do something else for their household and to ensure their safety, nobody really has a right to stand in the way of that. What led you to your current approach to politics?
Oh, there's a backstory to that.
Yeah.
All right. Like I said, I grew up in Los Angeles. Started out in Watts. Then my family moved over to the South Central area. It was 84th and Vermont area, gang infested, the whole 9 yards. Lived like crap. I didn't have my first Christmas until 17 when I actually left. And then when I got to Virginia, my senior year, I didn't understand. Everything was different. Nice houses. Everybody had great cars, nice clothes. And I said, okay, wait a minute. Why is life so different for Black Americans? But in this, where I came from, it was horrible. I need to understand. I want to know why. That led me into my search for answers, which when I went to college, I decided, you know what? I know who's behind this. Politicians. Let me understand how politics work, who makes these decisions, why the decisions are being made.
Man, he's always a politician. Politicians are behind every evil that happens in this country.
And then once I started digging deeper and I started taking these classes, started doing research, because you got to think, back in the 90s, late 90s, college was not like it is today. It was actually based on research, reference books, and quoting. Now it's whatever your professor tells you.
For sure.
So I actually got a lot of facts, and I was like, wait a minute. You're telling me that the people that we're supposed to be representing or political side, because I was always told you got to be a Democrat, you're Black. Wait a minute, we're voting for this lifestyle? We're voting to be living like this? And then I went head farther in and tried to get even more in-depth details.
Very cool.
So I think right now we're skimming surface, and I mean we're scratching the surface of it.
Okay.
And I'm saying that how to put it? Okay, I always say it. It seems like it comes up on every show where I'm talking about the growing up in the hood or in an urban environment. Have and have nots. Let's lose have and have nots. Well, the people that have not are dependent upon the government. And Republicans seem to say more about, and I believe it, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you can make it. I'm a firm believer you can do it. You go do your thing. You can make it. I don't care about your background. Go make it happen. Well, a lot of people don't have that approach in inner city, and they are looking for more handouts. And what happens is, because of mass incarceration and all the other things that are attributed to it, it becomes where now single mothers or the community are dependent upon the handouts from the government. So that makes them have to more or less stay Democratic in their voting cycle because they don't want to lose that handout.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that Republicans are 100% against it, but I'm saying that it just seems that way when people are pushing their politics.
Right.
So what do you think about that?
Right, that plays a major role. But the part I was wanting to dig into growing up is, why is it set up like that?
So why do you think it is?
My opinion started in 1964.
Okay.
We go to Johnson administration. He
after Kennedy's death.
Yes, he tried to bridge civil rights and all the stuff he had going on. The Welfare Act, which I think devastated Black families. That was a huge issue. And then I think from that created some dependency, because if you look at the Welfare Act, it required single-parent homes.
Yep.
Okay, that's a problem when the system is designed for, the 60s, Black men didn't get high-paying jobs. We had to get whatever we could. We could have 3 jobs. We still weren't able to make ends meet. But wait a minute. The government will take care of this family and that woman for twice as much as you're making if he's not in the house. Now you have a domino effect. Then you add into the Nixon administration, who put in a policy, hey, Black Panther Party and the hippies, the anti-war movement is the number one reason we're going to lose this country. So what did he do? Let's stop it. Weaponize the FBI, weaponize all the other government agencies, and then we have the war on drugs.
J. Edgar Hoover actually said the biggest threat to the American way of life was the Black Messiah.
Yeah, it's another quote. Yep. Exactly. And then once you do the war on drugs, what specifically targets, this is in writing, Blacks and hippies. And there we go from the backstory to where we are today as far as how the 80s unfolded and the 90s, because you know what the war on drugs did.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So my question now is based on that, what you just said, that premise, and I'm a firm believer in this, and I told you this question was coming. Okay, and now what? Like, at what point do we say, as people, as a community, and I just don't even I'm like, pores. Okay, I got it. This broke you down. You lost your home. Hey, your parents weren't here. I got it. You were this and that and this. Now what? Like, at this point in history, okay, yeah, 80s, 90s, it's 2022, right? Now what? Hey, 400 years ago, we were slaves. Right. I agree. And that was 400 years ago. Your ancestors were slaves, and they ran away from that, and they were learning to read when learning to read was illegal. And now our literacy rate is where? As an African-American culture. Pretty bad. Pretty bad. So my question becomes, well, you had slaves learning to read when learning to read was illegal. And we can't say it's all white people because no slave learned how to read. So some white person showed the first black person how to read. When we were running and doing these runs from, like, we act like, hey, he was running and he just ran from the south to the north. Right. No, it was it was called the Underground Railroad. It was a lot of white people hiding them and getting them to where they needed to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it wasn't like it's only every white person's bad. I'm not even saying that.
Not even close.
Yeah, so what my thing is we're saying, if they were willing to do all that, what is our issue now?
I look
it's
at this.
Layered.
Yeah, it is. Well, the biggest problem is, like, I can even use Alamance County. I can use what I see today in just normal cities.
Yeah.
You're talking decades and decades of systematic racism. You know, for clear cut right now. Look at the black neighborhoods today and look at the white neighborhoods. What do you see in black neighborhoods? Every avenue for us to fail. Rental centers, car title loans, pawn shops, everything we need to fail as a community sitting right in our area.
About check cashing places.
Liquor stores. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And then look at our schools. I brought this up in Alamance County to our school boards. Why do our schools look like prison systems in Alamance County? You go to this area, their schools look like college campuses. So I think, again, it's so deep and rooted. And black people, we gotta be honest, we become complacent. You know, a lot of us become complacent, and we become a product of the environment that we're still in. Yeah. And complacency, I think, keeps us angry, emotional, and at a standstill, blaming everybody else around us, and it keeps our minds clouding forever to come up with avenues to get ourselves, and, like you said, pick yourself up by your bootstrap. I just think it's just a lot of, I honestly don't think we have the same opportunities today as on the big picture. Okay. You know, that's just my opinion. Okay. And from what I see, like, in around towns.
Okay. So that's where we're going to separate on the opportunity.
Okay.
I think that America was founded, and people say life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. The truth of pursuit of happiness is the pursuit of money. Mm-hmm. Like, that's what that means, pursuit of money. Because at the time, slaves were property. So they were life, liberty, and pursuit of money. Like, hey, you can own as many property as you want, and that's what we were, part of the property. That's why we were one third of the person, because we didn't want to give us rights to vote. That's another whole thing. But like, we were property. So pursuit of money, right? Well, my thing is, opportunity to me is there for everyone. Like, we say things to our kids where it's like, you can do anything, and you can do this, and you can be anything you want to be. Do you truly believe that? If you don't truly believe that, then don't tell your kid a lie.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Don't lie to your kids. So opportunity, my daughter can go to college. My son can go to college and be whatever they want to be. The problem I see with the black community is that we're looking for equality of outcome. And I'm saying, my thing is, hey, dude, if you worked all your life to play in the NFL, and the NFL only takes 1% of the population is going to make this, right? So you really don't know how, like, you didn't really apply yourself in school, but they kept passing you because you were good at football, then you didn't make it to the NFL. Are you really set up for success? No. So you picked all these things. You chose that way to go, though. And then you're mad at this other kid that was raised in a different environment. It could be a black kid in a suburban environment that was told he can do this, he can do that. Hey, you play football, but you might want to actually pay attention in school and start going to med school. Get ready for this. Actually, it's someone that did it at Stanford. The running back that graduated from Stanford left the NFL early, and now he's a neuro doctor for doctoring people's brains because he retired from the NFL after that. So, like, he understood, like, hey, this football thing is cool. And he got drafted to the NFL. But he was like, hey, this football thing is cool, but if I don't make it, I want to have something that I actually can do, that I actually could be successful at. And I think the problem is, and I said it on the last time, the problem is until as a community, we decide to redefine what success is, we are going to keep running into these problems. Until we say that being the biggest drug dealer with the greatest car isn't success, being this isn't success, making it to the NBA, that's cool. I would love everyone to do it.
I mean, like, how many kids out there, probably every kid on the planet says they want to be in the NFL or be in the NBA?
No.
Most do.
No, my son plays football.
Does he want to be in the NFL?
Yes, but guess what? I sat him down. Okay, but I sat him down.
Everybody's kid says that.
No, I sat him down and I said, hey, son, I was worried that he was going to say that. And I sat down. Me, my daughter, who's 17, and my wife were sitting down and we were all talking. I was like, hey, man, he's 13. I said, what do you want to do when you grow up? And he was like, I want to be a lawyer. And I was like, I've never been a lawyer. I'm in the Army. My wife, she has a criminal justice degree, but she's been more of a stay-at-home mom and has little jobs. He ain't seen nobody be a lawyer. He's like, I want to be a lawyer. And I'm like, and I told him, that's the proudest thing I ever saw from heard you say to me. And he said, I was like, what about football? I asked, well, what about football? He's like, I would love to play in NFL, Dad. I'm going to try. But so few make it that I'm not going to be like, hey, every egg is in that basket. And the problem is you have kids literally growing up in inner cities, and I was one of them where I was like, I'm going to get this basketball thing and I'm going to make it and take care of my mom. When guess what? In reality, you're the child. Your job is not to take care of your mom. The reason people are selling drugs is because they can make money to help their family. Hey, my family needs this and my mom. And then here's my next biggest beef with this whole thing. If your kid's a drug dealer and he's helping you take care of your family, when he gets shot by the police or something, we shouldn't be having no march for him. He was a drug dealer.
Right, that's a whole nother topic. Yeah, I have my feelings on stuff like that as well.
Yeah, and that's my thing is like, hey, I don't agree with that stuff. When we're breaking it down, like we have to redefine what success is for our communities. And then the problem is, my personal opinion is we're not a community because a community doesn't rob from each other.
No.
A community doesn't shoot up your house. Like if I go do a drive-by and I don't care where the bullets impact, right? A community, that's not a community. Communities take care of each other.
That's a generalization. Not all African American communities operate like that, right?
Are we talking about hood African American communities?
Sure.
Like inner cities?
Inner cities?
Yeah, I'll say that.
I would say majority of inner cities.
So my family's from North Philly. Okay. And
let me ask you this.
I will admit, I never lived there.
So no, you're making my point.
Right.
Your family's from North Philly, and when North Philly got bad, the black people that was like, whoa, left. So most people in the inner city that are still there are living it. Either they can't afford to get out of that environment, so they have to tolerate what's happening in that environment. But if the majority of what's happening in that environment, so my thing and goes to what you're saying, the crack epidemic, all that stuff took the fathers out the house home. So we haven't really got into this, but what did you leave? Because the mother's working at a job and getting welfare now. You leave kids raising kids. I'm a kid and I'm hanging out with other kids. We're raising each other. Because none of us have parents at home. We're just hanging out, running the streets, doing stuff. So guess what? We're raising each other. So what do we emulate? What we see. We watching sports. We're watching the drug dealers on the corner. That's who we're hanging out with. Hey, go get me a soda from this place and here's some money. Go in there and buy a beer. Hey, that's for so-and-so that's on the corner. And yeah, it's illegal for the guy to sell you beer, but all right, man, here's so-and-so, here it is. And you go out and you give what's his name is beer, he gives you $5 or something, right? So we're emulating what we see and we're doing those things, but it's kids raising kids.
Right.
If the father figure's not home to be like, yo, like, sounds bad, but like no father figures at home to be walking out there and saying that won't happen. Like we had bad area in where I grew up and my grandfather was around. So my grandfather was the one to be like, you will not be outside. Now my mom would have said it, I'd have been like, man, I'm bigger than you. Get out of my face, right? Yeah, I know I was on punishment. Why were you outside? Yeah. But I didn't want to square off with my grandfather.
Right.
Like when I came back and had to deal with another man being like, I told you not to go outside.
That's crazy. All right, so we're going to cut it a little bit close. All right, last thing. What things do you have going on, and what would you like the community to know?
Perfect. Well, right now, I'm on the sideline, but I'm helping my wife. She is the CEO of an organization known all over the state. She gets abused weekly for it. But it's called the Tax Force 2.0, fairness, accountability in the classroom for teachers and students. We piggybacked off another organization. We added our own 2.0 to it. And basically, we're fighting back against the indoctrination and sexualization of our kids, because where we are as students, it's a disgrace. You know, I posted it yesterday. My county is one of the worst counties in education, but instead of teaching people reading, writing, and arithmetic and ways to better yourselves, education, I'm huge on that. Educating your mind and growing. They're not doing that. They're teaching kids, it's okay to be gay. Oh, that's fine. I mean, but 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds, that's not what we're here for. And they're teaching, in my opinion, it's not even an opinion, if you're due to research, kind of a fact, Marxist ideology. People who aren't sure about nothing about Karl Marx, I highly recommend you read up on it and educate yourself to see what's going on, not only in our education system, but in our country.
Yeah, and I'm happy you mentioned that, because a lot of people, when they think about Karl Marx, especially people who don't actually know who he is, they consider him like a positive figure, a revolutionary figure, somebody to look up to. But I highly suggest, just as Mr. Brooks mentioned, please do research on the guy.
When I think about Army leadership, they pound it into us. I think of the acronym leadership and loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honesty, integrity, personal courage. That can be interpreted several different ways. When it comes to Hitler, there's a lot of those acronyms he's missing. Okay. But
I agree. But I'm just going off the leadership definition.
They were terrified. Definition. His own people were terrified.
No, he's not a great person. But off of that definition, I don't want to get into judgmental stuff.
Right.
So I'm I don't believe in what he's doctrinally, what he wants to do. But if I'm going off of what the definition is, I'm Alexander. But here's the flip side. The flip side of that is Alexander the Great is praised. He went across and just conquered people after people after people, and we praise this guy for basically just going through and doing nonstop war and genocide across the countries.
Right.
Is that cool? No. But we don't put him on the same plane as the other guy, because what? We're civilized now?
Right.
Yeah, no. He did the same thing.
Yeah.
All righty, so we're gonna conclude. We're coming up on that 20-minute marker. Alrighty, so we got one more aspect. Mr. David Harris, do you have any closing thoughts?
Yeah, so my final thought for the day. Hey man, so something been thinking about is saying, give people their flowers and tell them that you appreciate them. We take too many things for granted in life. If you call someone your friend and you're truly friends, not just acquaintances, actually let them know you're friends. Call them from time to time. Talk to them. We take so much for granted in life and say, hey, I'll see you tomorrow. And, hey, man, next week. Well, that dude may not be here next week. Right. So every once in a while, you might want to let people know you appreciate them and just let them know how they're important to you.
For sure. Guys, that's the show. If you made it all the way this through, you are the real one. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Mr. Anthony Brooks.
Sir, it was a pleasure.
My co-host, Mr. David Harris. We are out.